Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd. Thank you for joining in to another live stream here on the RAS Picks YouTube channel. Thank you for listening over on Apple or Spotify on the podcast feed, and perhaps you're tuning in on X live in your timeline. Good to have you back for another NFL draft show as we are 2 days away from the NFL draft. Today, tomorrow, one more show on Thursday. Looking forward to day number one. Friday will be a draft recap show, as well as perhaps looking towards any day two markets that may end up opening. If you're live on YouTube with me this morning, on the right-hand side of the viewing window, or perhaps below if you're watching on mobile, there is a chat box where you can get in your questions, you can get in your comments. Would love to have any that you have on the top of your mind in the comment box, and I will get to them throughout the course of the show. Brandon Shoemaker says, we're officially entering the disinformation stage of the draft. Yesterday, the entire day on Monday, was a weird kind of day. And I know there's always the saying that you don't trust what's said the final week of the draft leading up to day one on Thursday. I'm having such a difficult time this year compared to last year, which was the first year that I really got into covering the draft and really following things, trying to understand how much of what is being said recently, yesterday, over the weekend, is based in some sort of factual context compared to what is just going against this overwhelming consensus that has been built for the last couple of days. I know I've said it a lot on the show. That's just the sense that I'm getting, and I don't know which side is real and which side is not. And there's almost, in a way, I feel like this morning, as I went through and looked through some of the odds to get ready for the show in the last half an hour, saw where things are. Those original thoughts that everybody had for like the last 2.5 weeks prior to more or less Saturday, those opinions are kind of becoming, like, in a way, contrarian again, because so much has shifted the last couple days. I'm watching shows and people are just searching for any reason not to say what everyone was saying for 2 weeks, which was being said by everybody, because I feel like everybody was following what made sense and what was out there. I'll give you an example with the Jags coming up at 5 as we go through some of the exact pick prices in just a minute. But Brandon, you're absolutely right. A lot of maybe it's not even misinformation, Brandon. Maybe it's more just trying to be different in the content that's being produced. Again, I don't know which side of it's right. I'm having a very hard time placing what is right on either of those sides. And that's what we're looking at. And like you said just now, all of a sudden, the Giants are taking Shedeur at number 3. And that's kind of been stirred up the last half an hour as we head into this. So it's been a very confusing, I would say, 48 hours, especially at the top end of the draft for anybody who has been betting it. Ryan Roberts wants the AC mock. I did one last year. Maybe that'll be something we'll do tomorrow here on the show before all the experts go later tomorrow night. We'll see what comes of that. Very difficult to do. I think if a guy can get 7 or 8, I think that puts you among the elite of the mock drafters around. So maybe we'll do one tomorrow, Ryan. We'll pull up the sim and do it here live on the live stream. If you guys like that, let me know in the comments. 7-round mock draft. That's not happening. You might get 32 from me. We'll see what comes of it. Before we get into some of the odds and the updates, I want to talk to everybody about Bet 105. If you are betting the NBA or NHL playoffs or even the MLB every single day, and you are doing so paying full juice or full vig, you're doing yourself a disservice. Over at Bet 105, minus 105 and minus 106 sides totals and money line spreads that are a little less than 3% in the major U.S. sports. You can do a whole lot of good for yourself by betting at these prices. And if you're settling for minus 110 or minus 115 elsewhere, which is absolutely out there, that's a little bit crazy. So if you're interested in checking out Bet 105 and playing at reduced vig for all the major U.S. sports, especially now throughout the playoffs, you can look at the link in the description. If you click on that link in the description down below in the video, it will take you over to Bet 105. You can see all the details, what it takes to deposit, which is quite simple. If you want to play in an offshore sports book, it has a reputation tied back to a number of other big offshore sports books as well, with the new staff that is running Bet 105. You can find all the details to do so down in the description of this video. There's a link. Head over, see all the promotions, all the details, and all the benefits you will get from playing at Bet 105. If you've also not already signed up for the footballbetters.com free email newsletter, you can do so. There will be an email going out later today. There will be another one going out either very late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, perhaps before the show, as Wednesday p.m. is when we're going to hear the final mock drafts from guys like Peter Schrager, Daniel Jeremiah, Matt Miller, and others. That typically has a big impact on the market. It obviously will come out after those go out, so some of the things will already be moved by then. I saw a comment on the YouTube video yesterday, and it's like, hey, you're talking about this. It's already moved. It's tough to time up live draft streams or live draft emails with something that hasn't moved already. And so doing my best to kind of keep that timing window as suitable as it can be. And so there will be at least 2 emails now between now and Thursday, if you've not already signed up, footballbetters.com, the free email newsletter for you to look at. A couple more comments coming out. Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network says logic will go out the window when the owners get involved in the process. As it relates to the Giants, there was some commentary yesterday I thought was pretty strong. The personnel department, like Sanders, the coaching staff, specifically Brian Daboll, allegedly does not. So a divide in the Giants locker room. We heard about the initial divide last week, I would say, and then kind of got some more color and context to it yesterday. That's where those guys seem to be sitting. And so it would be tough, I would think, for a personnel department to overrule the coaching staff and the management there. I don't see Shedeur going 3. I just don't see it. And there was a quote yesterday that said, if common sense prevails, it will be Abdul Carter for the New York Giants at number 3. Okay, let's get to pick numbers. And these are available at a number of sports books now. Number 1, number 2, number 3, exact picks, exact prices, just looking where guys are at, what's going to happen. Cam Ward, minus 20,000. There was a tweet yesterday that said the Titans have informed Ward that they intend to use the number 1 pick on him on Thursday night. So what has been known for a while seemingly has been confirmed yesterday. Crazier things have happened, but Cam Ward, a very long price to go number 1. That is why that price is higher. Pretty self-explanatory. Don't think there's any surprise there. Number 2, Travis Hunter, minus 800. Last week was minus 300 midweek. Talked about it on the show. It has gone up since to minus 800. I think this is another one that is pretty self-explanatory for why the price has gone up, but the ties between Cleveland and Hunter. Number 3, we talked about some muddiness, if you will, this morning with some of the Sanders rumors coming out, with the way some of these are kind of coming out commentary-wise. I can't buy into that. I can't see that happening. I think at any stretch, if you're trying to really look at it, perhaps it's the Giants angling for a trade. I know Nick Kostos, who is in the area, Giants fan, tied to Giants media, covers it. He had some videos out about why it wouldn't surprise him if they go QB. I think that would be a big stretch for the Giants in Daboll, who has allegedly not been high on Sanders relative to even other QBs in the class that are not named Cam Ward. For him, and what could be a do-or-die year coaching-wise, goes and takes him after signing 2 QBs in the free agency window. That, to me, just seems like such a stretch at this point. So Abdul Carter is minus 600, Travis Hunter plus 450, Shedeur Sanders plus 550. Again, if common sense prevails, as it was said yesterday, Abdul Carter will go number 3 to the New York Giants. Number 4, yesterday, Will Campbell was the one guy outside of the top 3 in this consensus that has been established for 2 weeks prior to the weekend that actually came out favorable from the Monday news cycle. It seemed like Genty 6 to Raiders got blown up. It seemed like Mason Graham 5 to the Jags got blown up. It seemed like Armin Menbu 7 to the Jets got blown up. It's like everybody that was in the consensus from 5 to kind of like 13 just had everything blown up. And then here's Will Campbell, who was the guy for 2 weeks that I felt like was the most uncertain in that initial consensus. Like, everybody felt really good for a long time about Mason Graham 5 to the Jags, but he was viewed as like, are we just guaranteeing this? Genty to 6 to the Raiders made a lot of sense to everybody. Menbu 7 to the Jets to fix the right tackle issues made a lot of sense. And then it was like Will Campbell Is he the right guy for the Pats? Are they going to go offensive line when they can still go other ways? Is his physical limitations? Is he really a top 5 guy? Like, there were always the concerns about him. And then yesterday, it's like, yeah, the Pats like Will Campbell. And then this morning, Ian Rappaport said, even if Abdul Carter is available at number 4, the Pats probably still go Will Campbell. So Will Campbell is the one guy that came up pretty well from the news cycle. He is at minus 380 to go number 4. This is higher than where Travis Hunter was to go number 2 around this time last week, which confidence-wise and more importantly, what can happen in front of him wise or any changes, there feels like a lot more ways that this could potentially change compared to Cleveland 2 with Hunter, which at 300 kind of talked about how that could be a little bit short. So I don't think you have a lot of confidence necessarily at 380 laying that with Campbell to go number 4, but certainly seems like that is growing in sentiment that number 4 is going to be Will Campbell, while everything else seems to be kind of unsettled as we go down the exact pick market. So Will Campbell coming up pretty good from the news cycle yesterday. Number 5, Jacksonville. Mason Graham, for the first time in a very long time, is no longer the favorite to go number 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Instead, it is now Ashton Genty, who is plus 135, Jalen Walker plus 650, Tet McMillan down from 50 to 1 to 7 to 1 after the Adam Schefter article, Armand Membu plus 850, Tyler Warren plus 1200, and then Shadur Sanders 25 to 1, everyone else longer. So Mason Graham was locked in at number 5 in so many mocks and so many consensus commentary shows, podcasts, whatever you want to reference for a long time. And while Will Campbell had some knocks, Mason Graham was kind of the one guy that the arm size and the physical traits and everything just had all of a sudden everybody in the last 24 hours looking at what I think happened was looking at the consensus and saying, okay, of the top 7 guys, I want to produce something that's different and talk about something that's different. Like, which are one of these guys that are the most unsettled? And I think if you're looking at the top 7, it was going to be Mason Graham, number 1, as going 5 to the Jags. And then number 2 was Ashton Genty going to the Raiders, perhaps with other teams trying to move up in front. And so Mason Graham was the logical spot to look at and to pick on. We've seen the market shift in a pretty significant manner with Genty going up to plus 135. Now, I think it becomes a question of, does a team trade up to number 5 to leap the Raiders to take Ashton Genty? I don't really buy into the Jags going out of their way to draft Genty and change this direction. I don't know if I feel the same about the Tet McMillan stuff, even though it was in the Schefter article and took a lot of bets yesterday. And the reason I say that is because going back and looking through anything that we have heard from Liam Cohen, anything we have heard from James Gladstone, there have been a lot of comments that emphasize the offensive and defensive line. The offensive line, they added 4 guys in free agency. Defensive line, they still haven't had any answers. But perhaps equally or more importantly, there's been a comment where Gladstone downplayed the importance of running backs early on, citing the depth in the class and getting a guy later. And there were also comments where Liam Cohen was downplaying wide receivers. More importantly, that came on April 15th, where Liam Cohen said, I wouldn't say this draft is sparkling at wide receiver compared to other drafts. There are a couple good ones, but we feel good about guys later on. It's definitely a position that we'll be looking for. Does any of that, to me, say Jags are going out of their way to take Tet McMillan, number 5, a guy who a week ago was being spoken about drifting down the board with Matthew Golden potentially being wide receiver number 1, based on what I would say was some pretty tangible news. I read that and I don't really get that impression from the comments and how it was said. And I don't know, like if I'm looking at the Jags in this position, as Genty just took another bet and is now down to plus 110 and Graham is out to plus 165, I kind of feel like if the Jags go a different direction, it's not running back and instead it's going to be an edge rusher rather than going to defensive tackle with Graham? Because there's been multiple times where in these pressers the last couple of months, combine, at the annual meetings, at the pre-draft presser, they've referenced edge rusher as a priority. And so I wonder if Jacksonville goes that, they're going to go away from Mason Graham. Now, the thing about obviously betting the exact pick number is you're also having to account for the fact that someone might trade up above Las Vegas to get Ashton Genty. If you listen to what he said yesterday on PFT, he was saying that he thinks the first spot that he can go is number 6 to Las Vegas, and his bottom range in this is going to be number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. There was nothing that he was saying that implied that there was maybe interest at number 5 or the Jags were tied to him at number 5. And so I just didn't hear that. So does someone trade up to number 5 to get him? Possibly. But did the Jags end up taking him at number 5 when presented with these opportunities? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I don't know if I'm buying into that hype, and I'm buying into that rumor as it stands here on April 22nd. A couple comments. Crunch Time says, if Genty goes to Jacksonville, where do the Raiders go? Offensive line and defensive line. So I think the thought is that they would go Armin Membu on the offensive line if Genty is gone. I do wonder if I look back through some of the notes and some of the commentary, Daniel Jeremiah at the conference call back in February when presented with the Raiders, which felt like it was kind of pre-Genty 6 hype to the Raiders. He was talking about going best defensive player available as the logical choice for the Raiders. It seems like he presented that with a lot more confidence than some other teams from some of the notes that I have and some of the recollection I have of listening to that call live and participating in it. So I think the Raiders would go best defensive available rather than going Membu if Genty is taken. And there are some bigger prices on that, but I still think that Genty at 6 to the Raiders, I know it's becoming very popular to downplay and talk against. I have to take a step back and say Pete Carroll at 75 with a 35-year-old quarterback that they signed in a division from hell, QB and coaching wise, like this isn't a long-term build for the Raiders. Is Pete going to be coaching when he's 79, 80 years old? I don't think that's the case. I think this is a couple-year window for Pete. And is he really going to go in to week 1 with Raheem Mostert as running back number 1 and Sincere McCormick as running back number 2, taking an offensive lineman over a guy like Genty if he's available? I know in your question you're saying if he goes earlier. I know it's popular to talk down the Genty stuff, but man, I just have a hard time believing Pete would do that. I just really, really do. And maybe that's a very square opinion, but I really do. I think if Genty doesn't go to the Raiders, it's because someone went up to 5 to take him. I don't think that team is necessarily the Jags. Again, this could be like way out of line, but that's how I'm kind of thinking about it. Pick 7, Armin Membu, the favorite. New York Jets own pick number 7 at the moment, plus 150. Tyler Warren, plus 275. Kelvin Banks Jr., plus 550. Jalen Walker, 6-1. Jahdae Barron has been the popular guy recently, 18-1 behind Mason Graham, plus 750. New defensive-minded head coach in Aaron Glenn. New regime, if you will, outside of ownership, taking over that wants, from all indications, a very sensible and quiet and steady offseason to just settle the ship and go into the season just kind of stable in a bit of a rebuild fashion. Seems like all the confidence in the world around Justin Fields at quarterback. Just announced 5th-year option extensions for Sauce, for Garrett Williams as well. There just seems like a lot of stability, which is a hard thing to say for the Jets right now at this moment. I would be surprised if Membu is available if they go any other direction. Finding a long-term solution at right tackle, which Membu played his entire college career, unlike a team like New England, who's been kind of tied to him, that would have to switch him to left tackle. Like Membu here just makes a ton of sense if he is available. If not, there's talk that Kelvin Banks Jr. could be rising up a lot of boards. His under has been smashed, but I think that's more a connection to the Dolphins, who he's lined above, connections to perhaps the 49ers or the Bears or other teams in that 10 to 13 window, more so than that is tied to the Jets. And then Tyler Warren is plus 275. This reminds me a lot of last year, where the Jets were in a very similar position, and there was debate between going offensive line stability compared to playmaker at tight end with Brock Bowers. In hindsight, they probably wish they went Brock Bowers, but nothing that I have read suggests that Tyler Warren is in that same category as Brock Bowers. So do I think Aaron Glenn and this new direction and this new regime goes tight end playmaker over offensive line stability? I really don't. I think the curveball that would come from this is if a guy like Mason Graham is available because he ends up sliding, I think that's a real choice between him and Membu at 7 if that scenario plays itself out. Pick number 8. This is where it gets very muddy. I think Carolina, everybody is quite confident in saying that they're looking at adding to the defense. I go back to Dan Morgan comments about it being a goal, like they built the offensive line last year to build up the defensive line and pass rush positions this year. Jalen Walker, the favorite, plus 130. Michael Williams, plus 400. Tet McMillan, plus 550. Mason Graham, plus 900. And then Jahad Campbell, Will Johnson, Shamar Stewart, all 15-1 or longer. There has been hype around the Carolina Panthers taking a tight end at a very long price. That has come in quite a bit. That was as high as 25-1 at some point. We're seeing that a lot lower. I have a hard time looking at Carolina doing anything in this spot except adding to the defensive line and pass rush position. Number 9, it continues to be an absolute wild card with the New Orleans Saints. Michael Williams plus 370, Shedeur Sanders plus 425, Shamar Stewart 6-1, Kelvin Banks 6-1. At this point, everything that's been said in the last 24 hours suggests the Saints are out on Shedeur Sanders, both at number 9 and in the second round with any picks. I think we're looking at this as Saints going pass rusher, defensive line. That price was as high as plus 650. It is now way down to minus 105. Michael Williams getting bet down quite a bit, still plus 370. Shamar Stewart over Williams does seem like a bit of a reach. So I think Williams at plus 370 is a price that we might maybe see shorten a little bit between now and draft day. And then pick number 10, Chicago Bears. Tyler Warren, the favorite, plus 350. Ashton Jeanty, second favorite, plus 425. Kelvin Banks Jr., plus 550. Colston Loveland, 6-1. And then a variety of guys, 14-1 or longer down below. Tyler Warren, in a lot of mocks, a lot of consensus, went 10 to the Bears kind of for the 2 weeks prior. There hasn't been a big, I would call it like deviation away from that. I think that's still the most logical choice for them, according to all of these mocks. I do wonder, though, just depth chart wise, I know you have Ben Johnson in as the new head coach. He's installing the new offensive scheme. You want to give Caleb Williams as many weapons as possible. Cole Kmet, a very serviceable tight end at the position. There could be an extra emphasis being put on the position from Ben Johnson and from the Bears staff, but reading through all of the different comments and all the different commentary from the pressers, whether it's polls, whether it's Ben Johnson, they're just kind of in a similar manner to Jacksonville with Mason Graham specifically. There were never really reporters at any of these pressers going out of their way in Jacksonville to ask about Mason Graham that was done with any sort of conviction. I haven't seen any of that with Tyler Warren to the Bears at number 10. So in the same way that we saw the number 5 pick with Mason Graham really shift, I wonder if we see that with Chicago. Like 10 right now with Warren plus 350 and Jeanty plus 425, who I don't think is going to be there, to me feels pretty wide open and has a lot of potential to change. So of all of these picks from 1 to 10, where if you were trying to talk me out of betting a favorite and taking a shot on someone longer down the board. I think there's a lot of instability with the current favorites, both 1 and 2, at pick number 10. And so Kelvin Banks Jr. at plus 550. I know there's a thought that the Bears are going to avoid adding anything to the offensive line because they signed 3 guys. Ben Johnson and this system, if you think back to the Lions, was built entirely around the offensive line that became the biggest strength of the team and of the offense. If this is going to be a change in an effort to help Caleb Williams and give him support and build that offensive system, I wouldn't put it past Chicago to go offensive line again and continue to build. You have a great interior, Darnell Wright at right tackle. Even if it's a depth option or at least competition, I don't think you can go wrong taking an offensive lineman if it is Banks Jr. or even if Membu ends up sliding at right tackle. You've got 2 good options in the draft to add on. So I don't think it's out of line for the Bears to go offensive line again if it comes down to it. I know tight end has been very popular with Warren at 10, but I wouldn't put it past them to go O-line. So I think there's a lot of instability at pick number 10 in this market. Jumping over to positional totals quickly, just an update on some of the prices that we're looking at and what we're seeing. As we go down the list, a lot of these have now become quite common and offered at a lot of sports books. Continues to be under money coming in on Jahdae Barron after all those comments for 2 weeks about him going in the 20s and higher. All of a sudden, he's tied to going number 5 to the Jags. He's tied to going number 7 to the New York Jets. He's been in a few mocks the last 36 hours, going in the early 10 to 13 window. So under money on Barron continues to come in against a lot of what was said the past 2 weeks. Jahad Campbell, I'm seeing him at DK and Bet Online at minus 200 to go over 18.5. Over at Circa, he is minus 370 to go over 18.5. I think those prices are going to continue to go up. I had a short video on it yesterday, as he is very likely to start the season on the PUP list. There's a lack of clarity about what his status is going to be in September and October. There has been ties to him going 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But of all of the guys in the latest top 150 from Daniel Jeremiah, some of the big boards, he was a guy that took a big step back from updates about 2 weeks ago to the updates that were posted yesterday because of his medicals, which were published in the last couple of days and shared and finalized. He got a very negative grade because of those medicals. So not only has there been ties to him going above this 19 to the Bucs and later, but I start to wonder how those medicals are going to shift him down the board. So this is a price that I expected to see this morning at some of these books go up higher and be bet differently. And it was at Circa, but I haven't seen it at these other books adjust yet. So I do think that's probably something we see move between now and draft day. Kelvin Banks Jr., as we talked about, under 13.5. There's a window open for the Dolphins. There's been windows open with the 49ers. I think there's a window open with the Bears. There's talks about him being maybe deserving to be a bit short of a price as the second offensive lineman off the board compared to Armin Membu. His under 13.5 has been being bet under consistently all the way out to minus 425. Pretty substantial on that. Mason Graham over 5.5 is now out to minus 215. This time last week, his under 5.5 was minus 155. So a big shift on Mason Graham to where there's probably people holding big plus money tickets on both sides of this, as his 5.5 has been stable, but it is a big shift in odds on him and the VIG on his draft position. Mike Green over 17.5. Talked about this one yesterday on the live stream. This has been bet up from minus 105 at this time last week. It is now out to minus 360. He has a couple sexual assault allegations that were disproven or never made it to court. But in the scouting reports we talked about last week, some of the scouts off the record don't have him on the day one draft board because of those allegations, character concerns. He was another guy that took a drop in the top 150 lists that were published. Matthew Golden down to 17.5. So his position has been bet down, but we are seeing the under now to minus 165. Michael Williams, 15.5. Yesterday, the under was minus 650. There's been a little bit of over money come back on that in the last 12 hours as the under 15.5 is now minus 500. So the over price has been bet in slightly between last night and this morning. Shedeur Sanders over 8.5 minus 400. That is the longest price that he has been at since open a couple of weeks ago for his over 8.5. And Amarian Hampton at over 19.5 out to minus 300. As there's a lot of speculation that he is going to be tied to the Denver Broncos at number 20. For the first round, yes, no prices, which are primarily all of the yes prices at sportsbooks, we are seeing a lot of movement on these. There was a comment where I'm looking and I'm pulling it up as there was somebody who threw out a first round flyer on Jaden Higgins from Ryan McGee, getting some potential first round buzz. Is this still a solid first round long shot? I'm looking for his price currently plus 700. I don't have any opinion there on that one, Ryan. We'll circle the plus 700 and see how that is tomorrow. Haven't heard much there. The Schweisinger bet, which I think is a reach at best, is down all the way to 2-1 this morning. That was significantly higher. Again, he was in that Schefter article. Everyone ran to bet him. Mason Taylor from the Friday show at 5-1 is down to plus 115. Trey Amos plus 130, tied to the Buffalo Bills at 30. But there was a very strong comment from Daniel Jeremiah on the Friday conference call that he did, where he doesn't think that he gets out of the first round, listed a couple of teams interested between 22 and 30 for Trey Amos specifically. Now that price has come in quite a bit. That's currently sitting at plus 130. Jalen Milroe at plus 130 is crazy. Unfortunately, there's not a no available. If there was a no available, I would probably be pretty comfortable betting that on Jalen Milroe. Luther Burden has been on the fringe in a lot of matchups that are posted. BetOnline has matchups. DK has matchups. He's plus 185 to go in the first round. And in a lot of the matchups that I have seen, he is paired against James Pierce. Jalen Milroe is also paired against James Pierce at BetOnline. Luther Burden is paired against Trey Amos at BetOnline. Trey Amos minus 200. James Pierce, his over-under has been 31.5. He in the top 150 dropped a little bit because of character concerns specifically. So you have Amos at 30, according to Jeremiah, as being the bottom for where he might go. James Pierce has been on the edge in the first round for the last week or so. And so minus 200 for Amos at BetOnline, probably getting quite close to a fair price. James Pierce has been bet up at both DK and BetOnline in the matchups where he is paired against Jalen Milroe. So that's been an interesting swing guy on the fringe of the first round, paired up with other guys who are fringe first rounders too, but felt like some of those guys he was paired up against in matchups were a bit of a stretch to go in the first round where he has been right on the fringe. But those character concerns recently kind of turning that back to a different direction. Maxwell Hairston, cornerback, again, tied. His stock has been rising a lot. He's all the way out to minus 250 to go in the first round. He was around plus 250 this time last week. So a big move on Hairston. He will be attending the draft in person. Once that was announced last Friday, we saw his price get bet up a little bit. Connerly, right on the edge, minus 220. He's been tied in a lot of recent mocks to the Kansas City Chiefs. The only person from Chiefs reporting world that I've seen advocate for the defensive line idea that was pretty popular 2-3 weeks ago has been Matt Verderam. All the other guys have seemingly turned to going on the offensive line side of things, and Connerly has been tied as the guy for the Chiefs, which is why he is out to minus 220. Bryce Miller is asking, morning, Adam. Hope all is well. Hope all is well with you. Good to see you back on another live stream. Hearing anything on Pittsburgh's round one selection? Everything from the Steelers at 21 has really been tied to quarterback. They have Mason Rudolph as the current starter. I don't know if anybody, fan or in that organization, is super comfortable going into a season with Rudolph as your starter. So there's been a lot of ties to them going with a quarterback. Mike Tomlin has publicly had comments on the record about how much he likes Sanders. So there's kind of an idea out there if Sanders is sliding that the Steelers' interest is going to grow the closer that he gets to him. Joey is asking, what's your thoughts on the over-under for quarterbacks in the first round? I have been on the under side of that really since day one of starting to do these shows a couple of weeks ago. I've never really been comfortable with the idea that we're going to see 3 quarterbacks going in the first round, especially now with Sanders sliding, with Dart sliding. To me, I've kind of always bought into the idea that if there's going to be that third quarterback going, it's going to be earlier in the second round rather than it's going to be in the first round. I know there was some buzz with the Rams and Dart, but I do think Sanders slides, and I do think that is the second quarterback off the board. I don't know if we see Dart go at the end of the first day. Luke Pope says, I took Warren to be a Colt 2 weeks ago at plus 175, and I'm worried he doesn't get past the Bears or Jets now. Thoughts? I don't think he goes to the Jets, Luke. I would be surprised by that. I was pretty adamant last year they go O-line. That's what I think they do unless there's one of these top defenders that fall to them, whether it be Graham or in some weird manner Carter, which I don't think is going to happen, but that maybe makes a bit of a decision. But I do think the Jets go O-line. To me, your concern if he doesn't go to the Colts would be the Bears at 10. But as I talked about, I think there's some instability in that as well. I get the idea and the fit and how exciting that might be, but there's been a lot of talk recently about these top 3 tackles going earlier than expected. I do think the Bears can do that. Now, if he gets past the Bears at 10, I selfishly would love to see him in San Francisco. The Niners are going to be changing their offensive scheme, a lot more emphasis on trying to beat man coverage, a lot more emphasis on moving away from 21 and playing in more 12. You put him opposite of George Kittle with how great he is as a blocker and how physical he is and how great and physical of a blocker as Kittle is. And then you have a guy like Jennings opposite Ayuk, who's very good when healthy at beating man coverage. And Jennings is just a monster blocking, and you get McCaffrey back. That is an incredibly exciting offense. There's been really no buzz or hype or ties to San Francisco doing that. But man, in a very important year for Shanahan and an offensive transition year, especially with what's going on in Seattle with his scheme now being inside the division and being paired with Mike McDonald, who's had the answers to the Shanahan scheme the last couple years, effectively making Clint Kubiak's version of the Shanahan offense even stronger. Kyle Shanahan is going to have to go a different direction this year to provide a curveball and do something different. They've got a mess with all these holdouts that they have to figure out with guys missing these early season workouts. If he ever falls to San Francisco, that would be, again, selfishly, I'm not speculating here, just incredibly exciting for how that could look in that offense. And so I wouldn't be worried about the Jets. I think the Bears are a concern. I think selfishly the Niners are a little bit of a concern, but that Colts landing spot would be next. I do think that Loveland is a bit of a better fit in that offense, but certainly with the tight end hype from Shane Steichen and what he says, I think those tight end prices position-wise for the Colts are a little bit rich. There's been a lot of speculation from Steichen and some of the commentary he's had that they would go tight end. So I see your thought process in that. Ryan Roberts says, any value of Banks at 7 with the steam on under 13.5 versus Membu over 6.5? Maybe. I don't know if it's probably a decision, but I don't know if I'm running out to bet that. Well, I'm a Seahawks fan, so respectively, I hope y'all take a bum on a reach. I think you're saying to the Niners. I see it. That Rebel Dog, if Jax hasn't wined and dined any top 10 picks and not taking Graham, they're going to trade the pick. So, no, not necessarily, because James Gladstone comes from the Rams organization, and the Rams do not visit or host picks or draft picks traditionally. The reason that the Rams do not do so is they think it introduces bias into the process and can overrule some of the evaluations, which they put a lot of emphasis on. And so James Gladstone, I think, has carried over that same mentality to Jacksonville. And that's why you're seeing them handle the offseason as they have, as it relates to the draft process and hosting and visits. So I wouldn't read into that as being a trade. I would read into that as James Gladstone taking from his Rams tendencies that he learned while there and applying them to the new Jag staff. So I don't think that means they're set up for a trade. I think that's just how they handle the draft overall. All right, that will do it for me today. I hope everybody has a fantastic Tuesday. Down below in the description of the video, a link to Bet 105 if you're betting the NHL or NBA playoffs. All the details you can find down below. Free email newsletter, footballbetters.com, with an update today. I see a couple comments for favorite picks or favorite thoughts. We'll include one or two in the draft newsletter going out later today. So if you're not already signed up at footballbetters.com, you can head over to do so. There is a link for the Football Betters Telegram down in the description as well, which is free to follow. So you can head over there, and that will be sent out later today. There will be another one sent out either late tomorrow night or early on Thursday morning to keep you updating with everything going on. Have a fantastic Tuesday, everybody. We'll chat with each and every one of you again, same time tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time.